Most people recognize that paper comes from trees, and so you see that in everyday items like toilet paper, paper towels, just the paper that you write on. But did you realize that glue incorporates pine products in it? Crayons incorporate pine products as well. So just about every item that you can look at and touch has some type of pine product in it.
My name is Steve Gilley. I'm the manager of the Florida Forest Service Andrews Nursery. I've been here about 34 years on site. Basically, we have two types of seedlings which the department produces here. The traditional bare root seedling along with the relatively newer containerized seedling. So we grow both of those types of seedlings here for the forest landowners of Florida. We have pretty much an annual to a little bit longer than an annual crop here at the nursery. We grow most of the pines that are in Florida. Bare roots are harvested one or two ways. If it's longleaf that doesn't really have a stem, we lift those by hand. We have a machine that runs over the bed, loosens the soil, and then we have female inmates from Department of Corrections which comes and pulls them up. With the slash pine, we're able to machine harvest those with our belted lifter. It's an all-in-one-piece machine. The ground is loosened, the seedlings are pulled from the ground up to a packing trailer, and they're put in tubs, and they exit the trailer and are carried to the packing shed. One of the advantages of bare root seedlings is that we can produce a whole lot of them in a small space. And for example, the bare root slash we were looking at, that we grow those at a target of about 22 to 25 per square foot. So a 500-600 foot bed would have 50,000 seedlings on that one bed, and so that would be 20 beds would be 1 million trees. So you can grow a lot of bare root seedlings in a small space. The seedlings, after they're lifted with the lifter and put into tubs, are transported to a packing shed. In the packing shed, the seedlings are weighed, sorted, and the roots are dipped in a gel to keep them moist until they get to the customer. In the bare root seedling bundles, normally with slash pine we have 500 seedlings per bundle. So each one of those blue racks you saw in the cooler would be 10,000 trees on a rack. So putting them together, you can put a lot of trees in the cooler. After packaging, whether it's the containerized seedling or the bare root seedling, customers can come here to the nursery, pick them up, and then they'll be transported by whatever means to the field for planting.
My name is Lynetta Usher Greiner, and I'm Secretary of Usher Land and Timber, which is our family-owned logging and cattle operation. And I'm also the administrative manager of our family-owned timberlands, which is Usher Farms. So my family owns several acres of timberland, and what we call a working forest. That means that we're not just growing it to look at it, we grow it for production agriculture. And that means that we grow it and we cut it, and we then prepare the land and reseed it. So timber is a renewable resource. After we cut it, we prepare the land to replant it with the seedlings. And sometimes we plant bare root seedlings, and sometimes we plant containerized seedlings. Forestry is a little-known agricultural secret in Florida. Over 17 million acres in Florida is forested in pine. We employ over 124,000 of our friends and neighbors in Florida in the industry, and it's a $1.25 billion industry for our state. There are over 5,000 household items, everyday items that come from forest. Little known is the screen on your cell phone. It incorporates a pine product. So when you're using your digital device, you're actually using a tree. Another little known fact is that pine trees are in your colas. There's an extract that only comes from pine that keeps the the chemicals suspended so that they don't separate like oil and water. So when you drink a cola, you're drinking a pine tree.
My name is Eric Hanley. I'm the forester at Usher Land and Timber, so I'm primarily over our logging operation. I buy timber from private landowners. I look after our crews, our trucks, and then help manage the Usher family properties. My primary job is to keep wood bought for our logging crews so that they always have something to do every day of the week, no matter what the weather is, which is one major component of my job, to make sure we have a diversified portfolio of wood bought, wet wood, dry wood, tracts with large timber, tracts with small timber. On the other part of my job, as far as managing the timber land holdings of the Usher family, that more or less just I fill in the gap. You know, that's not an everyday job, but it's already kind of set. I just am trying to continue what the family kind of started. There's a variety of planting methods. Mainly it's determined by the type of ground you're going to be planting on. So if it's ground that's going to hold water from time to time, it stays fairly moist, you would bed the soil, which is just like a garden. You bring a big tractor in and it brings the soil up, you know, maybe a couple of feet above the rest of the landscape so that the tree is suspended out of the water, because pine trees need dry ground. They can't be in water and survive. Another method is what you call V-blade planting, which is basically on a bulldozer, and it has a V-blade that pushes all the debris out of the way, and then the tree goes in the ground just level with the surface. And then finally you have a scalping method, which actually is a reverse of a bed where it's really dry, and it actually puts the tree below the rest of the soil so that it captures some of the water and holds more moisture. And then finally, the last method is a hand planting, which you can do in any environment. It's done by hand versus by machine. You know, we don't have an enormous land holding when it comes to relative timber companies, I guess you could say, but we do have a large enough scale that we do try to rotate our timber. It takes a long time to get income off of a timber harvest, so we try to have different age classes, from old growth timber that's ready to be clear cut to younger 14, 15-year-old timber that needs to be thinned. I typically look at our age class when decide what we harvest, and a lot of it has to do with the markets as well, but typically I look at, you know, the older growth timber that does not seem to be growing much anymore. It's kind of just sitting there dormant, so that needs to be harvested so we can get something back in the ground that's growing. And then also thinning operations, it goes by age, but it also goes by the stand density. You look at different things such as natural mortality. Those things kind of indicate to you when it's time to have a thinning harvest. We have 3 logging crews. They're all set up pretty much the same. There's first is there's the fellow buncher, which is what cuts down the trees, and that usually cuts down one at a time, but it can hold them into bunches. And then that machine puts those down in what you call a drag, and the skidder comes behind and picks up the drag of wood, and he pulls it up to the loader, knuckle boom loader, and the knuckle boom loader operator then sorts the timber based on the size and the quality of the tree, and that operator decides what mill it goes to. If it's a pulpwood tree, it goes to a pulpwood mill. If it's a chip and saw tree or a saw timber, it goes to a sawmill. The Department of Transportation has set standards that we have to follow when we're loading our truck, such as a certain weight limit that we're allowed to haul, a certain length limit, and a certain height limit, and we always try to meet those standards before they ever leave the woods.
I'm Doug Rogers. I'm the Green End Superintendent. My responsibilities on day-to-day are managing the flow of the wood coming into the mill, from the trucks getting unloaded to the production of the stems and the logs moving through the mill and being processed into lumber, and making sure they get out and get packaged into a product that can go through the dry kilns and on over to the planer mill. I'm also responsible for the safety and the interaction of all the maintenance and the production personnel. So here at Conifex in Cross City, we are a lumber sawing mill. So our purpose is to make boards. In that process, we create some byproducts, and those byproducts are chips, which is the waste wood that comes around the log. It goes to the pulp and paper mills. The bark that comes off the outside of the log goes to another division that does landscaping products that goes in your flower beds around your house. Also on our sawdust is, we use the smaller pieces of our green sawdust goes over to fuel the dry kilns, which is used to dry the lumber. And then the shavings over at the planer mill, which is a byproduct, is also used in horse bedding and livestock bedding. So on a day-to-day basis, as logs enter our mill, they're unloaded, they're put up on a deck. We take the bark off, we run them through an optimization system, we process them into, we actually call them stems as tree length, and then we process them into logs, which is the cut up portion. The logs are then sized by diameter. They run to one of two primary breakdown centers, where the bigger logs go through our sharp chain area and our smaller logs go to our hew saw area. As the two run through those two processes, they come back together and they converge to go through the trimmer area, where they're cut to length or either sent back to a reman center if they don't have the right dimensions. Once everything is finalized and it's put out into a pack, then it is stacked and moved on to the dry kiln and then the planer mill process. Over the years since I've been here, I've seen technology grow, and it's come a very long way. It's something that most people don't realize is actually inside of a sawmill nowadays. From the time we get a log in, there's some type of camera system looking at it and a computer making a decision on how to best manufacture that lumber and not waste any product. From start to finish, there's optimization through our mill, and everything is computer controlled. One of the components of the optimization in our mill is infrared lasers. The lasers are used as a light source as cameras gather data off the log or the lumber to get a 3D image of the wood so that it can process it the best. So at the end of our process, once a board has been processed correctly, the sizes are right, the moisture content's right, it's been through the final grade machine, which reads and optimizes the finished product. It gets stamped and then it gets placed into proper bay or the proper package for its thickness, width, and length, and by its grade mark, so that it winds up in the right package to get out to the store.
I think what's really important is to understand that trees are a renewable resource. So it's okay to print emails, it's okay to use paper, and it's okay to use any product that comes from a pine tree. Because as long as people use those products, then we have a reason to replant. If people didn't use them, we wouldn't need to replant because we wouldn't be able to sell our product. So it's okay to print those emails and use those paper products, and please tell your friends and neighbors to do the same, because that's how we're going to keep Florida green.